Today is Wednesday, February 28th, 2024, and the time is 5:31 p.m. Linda, if you could do the roll call, please.
Sure thing. Mike Picardi, I don't believe he was going to make the meeting today. He had an appointment, absent. Stacy Rizzo.
Here.
Susan Gravelisi.
Here.
Dr. Kelly.
Here.
Carl Svensson.
Here.
Christopher Bowen.
Here.
Rich Biscay. Not here yet. He said he might be a little late. Don Ciaramella.
Here.
Nick Rystrom. Voting absent. Jerry Visconti. Also absent. He did notify me that he might be late. Mayor Patrick Keith.
Here.
Excellent. And Tom, I apologize. I'm going to try and only butcher your last name.
Kurowski, it's okay. You weren't the first. Nice to see everybody.
All right. Thank you, Tom. All right. Starting off with some housekeeping items. We'll start off with meeting minutes from our last meeting, which is the January 17th meeting. They were part of the package that Brian sent out.
Motion to accept the minutes from February's meeting.
January.
Pick a day.
Second.
Thank you. And I will do a roll call for approval. Stacy Rizzo.
Yes.
Susan Gravelisi.
Yes.
Dr. Kelly.
Yes.
Carl Svensson.
Yeah.
Christopher Bowen.
Yes.
Don Ciaramella.
Yes.
And Mayor Keith.
Yes.
And Tom Skorowski.
I'll abstain on this one as I wasn't present.
Yep, thank you. I'm going to actually.
Linda, I noticed Rich Viscay has joined us.
Oh, thank you.
You want to call him for the minutes?
Thank you. I will call Rich Biscay for approval of meeting minutes.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. And noted that Mr. Biscay arrived at 5:32. All right. Next up, we have January invoices. I'm going to just take a quick pause because I see there's a lot more people coming on board here. So let me just double check first before. Right. Okay, we're going to start off with January invoices, and we have three different invoices, starting off with Left Field's invoice for project management services for January 2024 in the amount of $21,000.
Motion to accept $21,000 for Left Field.
Second.
Thank you. And for roll call, starting with Stacy Rizzo.
Yes.
Susan Gravelisi.
Yes.
Dr. Kelly.
Yes.
Carl Svensson.
Yes.
Christopher Bowen.
Yes.
Rich Biscay.
Yes.
Don Ciaramella.
Yes.
Patrick Mayor Keith, sorry.
Yes. Okay.
And Tom Skorowski.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have invoice for January services for Perkins Eastman in the amount of $42,069.55.
Motion to pay Perkins Eastman for $42,069.55.
Second.
Thank you. And for roll call, Stacy Rizzo.
Yes.
Susan Gravelisi.
Yes.
Dr. Kelly.
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Christopher Bowen,
Yes.
Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Don Ciramella,
Yes.
Mayor Keith,
Yes.
and Tom Skorowski.
Yes.
You. Last but certainly not least, we have pre-construction services for January from Consigli in the amount of $25,440.
Motion to pay Consiglio for $25,440.
Second,
Thank you. And yet another roll call, starting with Stacy Rizzo,
Yes.
Susan Gravellisi,
yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Christopher Bowen,
Yes.
Rich Viscay,
Yes.
Don Ciramella,
Yes.
Mayor Keith,
Yes.
and Tom Skorowski.
Yes.
Excellent. I believe that is all I had for the housekeeping items on the agenda. Brian, do you want to take over item number 4, school building committee roster update?
Yeah, I might defer a little bit to some of the folks that talked about this, but we know Tom's here tonight. If I have it right, I think Joanne is not on the committee. Tom is. Is that all the changes to the roster right now?
Brian, Patrick Efair, I know I spoke with the council president and asked if he wished to have a council member or himself be part of the committee. We'd be happy to do that. So just basically waiting on council. Oh,
Yeah.
Council Cogliandro's here. So whoever would like to be a representative of the council, we'd be happy to have if they'd like to participate. So once we get that determination, we'll have them join.
Sure.
Mayor, Chief, I will reach out to you this week about that, sir.
Beautiful.
And then Brian, once we have confirmation on that, I can resubmit the documentation to MSBA identifying the new members.
That'd be great. Sounds good. Okay. Otherwise, we're gonna move on. I'm gonna put a few things on the screen right now. We're gonna run through a little schedule update of we're right on the cusp of submitting schematic design. We want to sort of talk the next few months schedule, a little bit of a schedule look ahead, take a peek at a design development work plan to give you all a flavor of what the next phase of the project's going to look like. Ultimately make a motion to that I'll put on the screen in a minute. We have proposed language. You can edit it if you'd like, but a motion to approve schematic design and move forward with permitting. So we're going to sort of go through this in order. There'll be time when we get through this to, if anyone wants to dive into any point of the schematic submittal, we can do that. But I think for now, I'm going to sort of start with the immediate look ahead here. So what's on the screen right now is sort of a very prescriptive step-by-step to get us to an executed project funding agreement with the MSBA. Items number 1, 2, and 3 have all been done. The next item is to submit the schematic package to MSBA. That is due tomorrow. We're on schedule to do it tomorrow, provided that we clear the building committee motion to submit it. What happens after that is I wanted to give everyone a little bit of a flavor of. So MSBA has a 21-day window to provide the team with review comments. Those are primarily addressed to the project team. A lot of them are just sort of clarifications on the document set. So we will take the lead on reviewing those comments. If anything is impactful to the committee, we might be calling a meeting somewhere in there to talk about them. But usually this is sort of housekeeping within the 200-300 page document that we give them, asking for clarifications, or maybe they found a few conflicts that we have to clarify. We will also, the project team will be attending a meeting. For those on the team, I got confirmation from MSBA today that March 27th will be the day that we are asked to attend a facilities assessment subcommittee meeting. That's effectively the MSBA sort of design review board, architects, OPMs, contractors, folks from the MSBA, senior folks from the MSBA. They have 2 FAS meetings every board cycle. We only have to go to one of them. It's going to be on March 27th. Those of you that need to be there, the project team, Mayor Keefe and Superintendent Kelly, you're going to get a calendar plug from me tonight, now that we know it is March 27th. Some point in this process in March, MSBA will schedule what's called a project scope and budget conference call with the OPM, with us. And that's sort of the first time we see what's going to come back from them in terms of reimbursement. We've done a lot of work to project what we feel the grant will be. That project scope and budget call is intended for any questions they have of how we calculated reimbursement, and we start getting an idea of how that's going to come back formally. This will all then go to the MSBA board meeting on April 24th. Pending a positive result there and approval to move forward, they issue a board action letter the following day. These next few things I'm going to talk about, we have scheduled here. These are typically the turnaround times for MSBA, but again, this is a schedule. It could evolve a bit. Typically within about a week of that board action letter, we'll see the project scope and budget agreement, which I've heard described as sort of a purchase and sale. You're not closing if you were buying a house or a condo yet. That's confirming all the numbers. That's the official document that says, here's how we interpret your budget and how we'll reimburse. The city will need to execute that project scope and budget. And these dates are in alignment. Thank you, Councilor Cogliandro, Council President Cogliandro, for sort of coordinating these meetings. But as long as we stick to the schedule, there will be a council meeting on the 6th. And as long as we have that project scope and budget, we'll be seeking approval of it on that day. We have to tell the MSBA that that project scope and budget was approved. We can do that right away. They then take another week or so, potentially a couple of weeks, to issue the official project funding agreement, which is the big vote. That sets up, there'll be building committee meeting, council meeting later in the month, where we will do the project funding agreement vote. We're going to look at the language for that in a second, just for record. It's very prescriptive language. And at that point, once the project funding agreement is executed by the city, we will be having a meeting by June to execute contract amendments for Left Field, Perkins Eastman, Consigli, to formally move forward into the future project. So I'm going to just quickly, before we talk later schedule, what's on the screen now, you certainly don't have to read it, but I wanted the council to see this. I wanted the committee to see this. This is the very prescriptive PFA approval language from MSBA. They pretty much write it. We plug in the values, City of Revere, as opposed to, just says town/city in the template. We plug in the reimbursement rates. We plug in the budget. So anybody who's familiar with any of the city's previous MSBA jobs is probably familiar with this. This is the point of the process, that this very detailed vote language is what's required to approve the project funding agreement. So I'm going to just quickly pause and say, at least on the next number of weeks, getting us through schematic submission and to a project funding agreement, are there any questions on this part of it before we do a little bit of a schedule look forward? Just scroll, see if I see any hands.
Brian, I had just a quick question. Did you say the March 27th for the? Yeah,
that will be the FAS. Yes, they confirmed that this afternoon, Bob. So I'll send a calendar plug. We won't know what time slot we're in, but typically those things run a handful of hours. So for right now, I'm just going to plug everybody's calendar with a 4-6 hour block. Certainly will not take that long.
We didn't have any option for the 13th.
We did not, but if it makes a difference for Perkins Eastman, I can certainly ask.
I think it would be worth asking.
Okay. 13th. Okay. Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Okay, so setting up, just sort of looking forward, there's nothing really different in the schedule. You've seen the budget, you've seen the schedule. Perkins Eastman's walked you through the design. Those are the three main sort of legs of the stool of what we're approving tonight. But I wanted to just sort of break down what's coming. The next big phase is called design development. Based on executing that project funding agreement in May, we're calculating that we'll be able to start for real in June. That phase will run out into this coming winter. And ultimately, the design development package is also what we're looking to have a site prep bid package. That sets up our ability to start pushing dirt around, do the hazardous material abatement before we can move on to the rest of the building. 60% documents follow that, construction documents. That's the culmination of that phase is going to include bidding out the actual site work, not the site prep, the site work, foundation, concrete, steel, the bones of the building. We have a 90% construction phase, then final CDs, which will bid the rest of the building off. So at each of these 4 steps, well, at the first 3, there will be estimates, dual estimates performed to make sure we're on budget, to make sure we're meeting all of our budget goals. They will all require, these first 2 require MSBA submissions. The last 2 are more, actually the first 3 are all MSBA submissions. So they'll eventually be, motion to submit design development, 60, 90, et cetera. And this all sort of leads us out to the construction schedule we've shown you, where we start pushing dirt around next spring and we open this school up when the school year begins in 2028. The one item I'd like to talk about quickly here is the first line permitting. I sort of had this already went out to the committee, but I got some good input from the team that permitting isn't going to be done on this date. I sort of meant this as permitting to get us into site prep, we believe is done. This is what sets up the next 12 months, should set up being able to do site prep. The permits will roll in over the course of 2025. We'll get site permits, environmental permits, ultimately foundation permits, superstructure permits. So the permitting process itself will go from March 1st through probably fall of 2025. And they'll phase in as we need to do that work. So one of the strengths of the CMR process here is that we can start work on early bid documents and get the job rolling as we continue to estimate and confirm that we're on budget. So we'll be buying site prep from design development, estimating the rest. We'll be buying the bones of the building with the 60% document, estimating the rest. So the budget becomes real, so to speak, as we bid this through all these packages. The last note, and you'll see it in the motion, the proposed motion I'm going to set up is how are we proceeding on March 1st for permitting? Right now, Perkins Eastman and Left Field's contracts contain 3 more months of work that would have been the schematic design phase at the existing site had we stayed there. We are proposing to use those fees within our contract at no additional cost to the project or city to start permitting now. So we get the submission in this week and we basically start the permitting processes. We do the outreach, get on meetings for Concom, for other permitting, state permitting activities, and we burn the 3 months that's left in our contracts to do that. So we're looking to get early start on permitting, full start on design development, full team by June 1st, after, once we're able to bond the project, do the first bond on the project. And that supports the rest of the schedule here. So I'm going to just quickly show the draft motion, then we can sort of go back and talk about.
Actually, Brian, before you go on, so can you give me a little clarity on what you just said? So we've already contracted with you, with Perkins Eastman, with Left Field, and with Consigli. But because we are moving at a rapid pace, the amount that we contracted that we thought would be still getting ready for schematic design, you're suggesting we reapply that instead to start the permitting process early. Do I understand you correctly?
Yes, and the contracts that we're under now were established when we went back to the existing site.
Right.
And we would have to do a schematic phase. MSBA is accepting the schematic that we did in late 2022, so we don't have a schematic phase anymore. But those 3 months that are left in our contract values would give us a 3-month head start on permitting.
Basically that would save the city money.
Yes.
Compared to what we had thought a year ago at this time.
Yes, in that we're still holding the ability to get into that site next spring, summer. If
Yeah.
we feel if we weren't starting permitting until June, we probably
That
won't
would
be
be
able to be
a
in the ground by
challenge,
next
yeah.
summer.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And Brian, just quickly, let me undo my request. We're actually good for 327. I had the wrong
Okay.
date, so scratch that.
Perfect. You got it. So we're gonna look at a little quick work plan in a minute too, but I just want to the way the optimal motion to take care of this all in one motion, ultimately, after we go through the work plan and see if anyone wants to see anything in the schematic submittal, we're looking for a motion to approve the submission of the schematic design report, including the presented scope, schedule, and budget to the MSBA, and to direct the project team to move forward with post-schematic design permitting activities utilizing remaining funds within the existing feasibility study contracts. So that's a mouthful. We'll come back to it. I wanted to just give, following up on sort of this, I was going to ask if the Perkins Eastman team could just give a really quick sort of update on what's on the screen here is a work plan, just an idea on how we get there. But I figured this would be a good sort of prep if I zoom in here for a lot of the meetings and that are going to start phasing in as we go through design development. So I'm not sure, Dan, if you could just spend a minute talking through this.
Sure. Brian, this is kind of an expansion of the plan that Brian showed a little bit earlier, and what it shows is what the design team is going to be focused on and what we're going to be doing over the next over the DD and CD period. I've laid in what I think need to be the school building committee meetings that align with the with submissions and other decision-making points. The MSBA board meetings in there, the early permitting portion, which we call pre-design development permitting. You can see that all the coordination meetings are starting to go into this, showing the regular pace that we'll be going to having coordination meetings with our consultants. If you go down below where it says user interviews, that portion in there shows the frequency and or at least the proposed timeframes for when we're going to meet with all those groups. And what you'll see if you back out of this is that there's an awful lot happening in design development, because that's really where we're kind of putting this all together and developing what will be the project that ultimately goes into construction documents. So it's really refining that schematic design into a real project. And then when we get to CDs, you'll see it starts to kind of slow down. And that's because we really have gathered all that information in design development. And as we go into CDs, we're doing the detailing and the other things that make the project complete and ready for bid. So all of your involvement is going to happen in this DD phase. And that's when we're really going to be starting to ask for input and showing a lot of development. And there'll be a lot of opportunity for people to give us input and help shape what ultimately will be the new high school.
That's when kind of the end.
And Dan, can we, I know that at one point we had talked about who was going to be on all of these subgroups, but
Yeah.
we've had a lot of movement and changes on the committee since then. And so I think it would be good for us to plan, and maybe Brian Dakin, you can help with this, to put it on the next agenda for us to have another conversation once we know who the committee is going to be going forward, who's going to be on each of these subcommittee groups, and if there are other members of the community that we want to engage in those groups as well.
There we go.
Absolutely.
I end up hitting a.
Yep. It's great discussion for the next meeting. Yep.
Yeah.
And so we don't have, I have a feeling, so you were suggesting March 27. Well, that's maybe actually, that probably
I
would
was
be a good
lining
day.
that up with the facilities assessment
yeah.
subcommittee meeting.
Yeah, I think so we'll put out a draft agenda and a Zoom invite for March 27. I think that's a good idea. We will have been to the facilities assessment committee that day. We can report how it went and continue all these discussions.
Yep. And then the 4/24 is the board meeting. We figured the 5/8's a good time to, meet again and talk about the results of the board meeting and
Yep.
what the next steps are there.
Looks good to me. Linda and I will coordinate extending these committee invites out for the next number of months. Okay, so we can go back. I think my screen's sharing the different documents, but you saw the draft of the report. Summary of everything you've seen already, whether it was 2.5 years ago or a month ago. If anybody wants to dive into any of that or had any questions, that's wonderful. We can do that. Otherwise, we'd be looking to make this motion. And let me just say this, like this is a big deal. Getting schematic design into the MSBA is a big deal. This is probably the biggest midpoint that there is in one of these projects, other than putting a shovel in the ground then opening it up. We're right on the cusp of this really becoming real. So I thank everyone on the committee, everyone on the team, and counselors, et cetera, for helping get us where we are now. I'm just looking around for questions. Any questions, or would we like to entertain a motion?
Oh, I thought Diane had her hand up for a second.
I was clapping
Oh, okay.
for all of us.
I know, finally. Stacy, did you want to make the motion?
Motion to approve the schematic design submission and proceed with permitting as written. Do I have to read it? Okay, motion to approve submission of schematic design report, including the presented scope, schedule, and budget to the MSBA, and to direct the project team to move forward with post-schematic design permitting activities utilize and remaining funds within existing feasibility study contracts. So moved.
I will second that motion.
And I will take the roll call for this motion, starting with Stacy Rizzo,
Yes.
Susan Gravellisi,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
Emphatically, yes.
Carl Svensson,
Yes.
Christopher Bowen,
Yes.
Rich Fiskay,
Yes.
Don Ciaramella,
Yes.
Mayor Keefe,
Yes.
and Tom Skorowski.
Yes.
Thank
Excellent.
you very much. Excellent work, everyone. Congratulations.
We will, you'll be seeing an email probably end of the day tomorrow. We'll get it on the website too. But once this report's all buttoned up, we have some cover letters to write. It'll be going to the MSBA tomorrow. It will be posted on the website. I invite anybody to dive into it if there's stuff we want to talk about at future meetings. Otherwise, I think we're into public comment. Is there any public comment? Name and address for the record. If so, I do not see any hands right now.
I don't see any hands.
Going once. Looks like a nope. Any new business, committee? Seeing none, we've accomplished what we need to accomplish. Look for thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Great job.
Okay, good
And
night.
there's food and culture at Revere High School if anybody's in the neighborhood and wants to come by. It's a great time, music, dancing, everything.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Sounds like a great celebration. Thank you very much.